All right, welcome everyone. We got another special edition of the Coin Rivet podcast here, episode number 3, the man, the myth, Brian Rast, also known as Czar Rast, also co-host of Big Free with myself. It's nice to get him on this podcast to talk just about him, about crypto, about poker, about life. Brian, how are you?
Good, my friend. Good. How are you doing, Jeff?
Very well, very well. You know, I'm a crypto enthusiast, and it's nice to see anytime something you love is up 15% in a day. It's nice. So, give me your thoughts real quick. What's going on? I mean, what's happening with crypto right now?
What a day, man. What a day. It's you turn around and Bitcoin just mooning. Well, from mid 37s to mid 43s in less than 24 hours. I will say, you know what, Bitcoin kind of fell off the cliff right a couple months ago, like just straight down for like 2 months. It made it to the low 30s. I mean, in the last month since it's done that, it's sort of been forming a bit of a base. You know, it had a couple, looking over at the price, just in the last week or so, after going above 40, it kind of dropped down and retested the 30s again, and it held. And it's one of those things where, sometimes with like the trading, it's kind of like, is Bitcoin going to keep going down? But when kind of like the mid 30s held and it made a higher low, every once in a while, it's like the market decides, okay, well then I guess we're not making a lower low, and it pops up. Was there something specific to today? I mean, the thing that I saw is this, kind of idea that, the biggest thing is what's happening with with Russia and Ukraine, right? And this idea that now, we're imposing sanctions against the Russian National Bank and against Russia. And, Bitcoin is this new type of monetary asset, right? That's actually decentralized and not controlled by a government. And, there's a lot of speculation of, say El Salvador is adopting it as legal currency or this, or what are nation states going to do with regard to Bitcoin? I mean, one of the potential uses going forward is, listen, the dollar is like the premier currency used around the world as a international kind of store of value by countries. They hold dollars more than anything else by like a pretty wide margin. And, obviously Russia and China probably want to get around this for their like strategic, so one of the things that I understand that Russia did is Russia for the last couple years has started to like store up some money, say 600 billion or something, with the idea that when they attack Ukraine, they can weather some time from international sanctions. I believe also with some of their trade with China, they're more and more like trading with China, like not using dollars. And like, I think I saw some graph where that, it was previously over 80%, and maybe that number is like under 50%. And obviously China and Russia kind of bilaterally probably agree that they'd like the dollar not to be the international reserve currency. So, I'm sure China would prefer the yuan to the dollar or to Bitcoin, but, Bitcoin, at least being completely decentralized and not controlled by a nation, is I'm sure preferable to the dollar. So, it's that being the reason why it pumped today is obviously, pure speculation. I didn't see anything that say like Russia is buying Bitcoin, for example. But, I think the better explanation is more just like, hey, it looks like the market decided we're forming a base here in the 30s. And at least for now, 30K is not going to break. Who knows? Maybe this pump happens and it goes and it kind of dies out. And, the war gets worse. The S&P falls off a cliff again or whatever. And a month from now, 30K breaks or something. But looks for the time being, we're safe. So I don't know. That's my analysis.
I was reading, Bill Perkins tweeted something about buying the ruble with this theory that if it goes to zero, versus whatever, like, I mean, because Russia really has suffered. The markets, like the rubles dropped a lot, like 50%. I heard even. I don't know if that's true, if it's quite 50 or how much it's dropped, but really the world has come together. I think Switzerland banned, or confiscated or paused like 337 accounts of some people in Russia, some of the wealthiest people. So the world really has sort of banded together and put some pressure on Russia. And do you think that is something with Bitcoin, though? Do you think that's something that is a reason why? Do you think that actually the war could be in that sense, that there's reason why the Bitcoin would rise when the markets sort of fall, or do you think it's independent?
You know, I mean, the market today, did it fall? Like, I actually didn't really check it. You know, it looks like actually in the last couple of days, the S&Ps had a bit of a bounce after making a new low last week. You know, it's bounced since then. It got all the way down to, I don't know. I'm looking at VU, not the actual S&P, but the S&P made a new low last week, right? And it's bounced since then. So, you know, I mean, clearly my take on that, which is a slightly different question, is, I mean, listen, in the last couple of years, obviously a lot of money has come into Bitcoin, right? That's how Bitcoin price goes from 10,000 to 50,000. Is, you know, a lot more money's come in and bought Bitcoin. A lot of that money's coming from funds and other, you know, institutions that aren't just, say, you know, like a retail investor just like buying Bitcoin to just hold. They're correlating that at the end of the year they're selling to pay or whatever. I mean, and because all that new money that's come in is probably, that money is more correlated to what's happening in the rest of the financial markets. We've seen Bitcoin be more correlated. To me, there's no like really true long-term reason why I think that will definitely remain the case for like the rest of the future of Bitcoin's, you know, price history going forward. In fact, I'm pretty sure it won't. I mean, either at some point adoption fails and it goes, you know, Bitcoin decorrelates to the downside, or at some point, like, you know, my view of Bitcoin is that it's growing like a network under a type of network growth model logarithmically, but like the stock market's not really doing that per se. So like at some point there will be like positive events to the upside. I think more likely that'll cause this correlation to kind of come undone. So you'll see countries adopting, you know, whether like El Salvador is legal currency, or maybe some like nation states that want to avoid sanctions will start buying, like Russia, North Korea, whoever. And, you know, some, or stuff like spot ETF approval, such as like Grayscale being turned into an ETF, right? And some other things that would be pretty huge, because that's like a way better way to invest than futures ETF. Like right now we have futures ETFs, but that means every quarter these contracts need to be rolled over, which is like pretty costly. And so like these trading firms are like making that money, and it's kind of getting passed on. It's an inferior product to a spot ETF. And as of right now, like the SEC has kind of said this is okay, but not the other one. But the argument's pretty bad. I kind of think that it's like a countdown, in my opinion, as to like at some point the spot ETF will be approved. Now, will it be in the next year? Will it be in the next couple years or whatever? I mean, I doubt, for example, it's more than 5 years. So somewhere in the year to couple year range, I would guess. But like, you know, there's all these events that can happen that I think could have like a really bullish effect on Bitcoin that kind of have nothing to do, so to speak, or not nearly as much to do with like the rest of the financial market. That'll cause this correlation, like, oh, Bitcoin's doing the exact same as the rest of the market, to like come unglued. But right. You know, predicting that is, you know, anybody's guess, right? Because this is like, you're now predicting like when a country is going to do something, right? Like who knows? So
and let me ask you about the strength of Bitcoin. So it's dropped from, you know, 67 or 8K, 9K, or whatever the peak was, down to all the way to 33, even sort of in that stance. And then it got up, and now it's sort of held strong. What does it mean to you when Bitcoin sort of takes these hits, but then it does hold? Like you say, you know, how important is it with that strength, right? When Bitcoin actually holds its ground, or maybe could you argue that it's stronger even now than it was, you know, when it was closer to the peak? How do you analyze that? How do you look at that when it holds?
This is like about the last year or so, the price, you can see it coming up here at the beginning of 2021. I mean, you can really see Bitcoin's sort of formed a bit of a range here, right? With like 30 being kind of the bottom, and say 70 technically being like the top, 69, you know, if you want to get too precise, but like high 60s to 30, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, you know, the way that like I kind of view Bitcoin, right, when I'm talking about this like network growth model, if you really want to zoom out, and here's a chart which kind of shows that a bit more, right? Like here's you can kind of see along this path, maybe it's like the upper or lower band are kind of within this like logarithmic curve. And if you like look that out, it's the same type of curve. You're like, hey, look up like network growth model and you'll see logarithmic little curves of growth. You know, I mean, this curve is like very wide because, right, a logarithmic price scale, like right now, looking at kind of a best fit line, like the bottom would be, you know, like 15K and the top is like over 100K. So of this particular one. So, I mean, that's a huge range. So what does it mean? I mean, for me, like, given that the way Bitcoin has worked previously with the, you know, all-time high, like when it's put an all-time high post-halving and then consolidated for years and then gone above it, like this is the third time that's happened after the third halving. Each time before, price never went back to the previous all-time high level. There was a gap there in the up. So, I mean, this gap right now is being expressed by that difference between like 19 and 29,000. Maybe that gap gets filled in this time because we didn't go up by a lot of multiples. Maybe not. I would expect there to be a lot of, let's call it Bitcoin buyers of last resort, people who are in cash, either because they sold or want to get in the market, that if Bitcoin started going down in the 20,000s, especially retesting the previous all-time high of 20K, like I would expect to see a lot of buyers step in there for like, you know, I mean, it's just a very clear level on a chart. Okay, this was a previous all-time high from like December 2017. We're retesting that level. And if you want to buy in Bitcoin, you know, it's spent over a year above 20K, as high as 70. Like this is a great dip, quote unquote, to buy. So, you know, to me, like maybe 30K holds. It's looking good so far. Maybe not. But I would expect that gap there above 20 to be like a lot of support. So, you know, to kind of roundabout answer your question, like, yeah, I mean, to me, this is all kind of just like normal price action for this like kind of weird one-of-a-kind asset as it's like growing as a network in the world. Because in a certain sense, if you think like Bitcoin being this ultimate kind of saver's asset with a low supply, great, but that's kind of like the future right now. To a certain extent, people buying it are a bit speculating on this like progression that's been going on for 12 years now to kind of continue, right? And more, the bigger Bitcoin gets, the more it's expressing these characteristics that it one day will like be much more fully. But like now, you know, it's still very volatile. But like this is, for example, this is the thing that detractors say all the time. Like, oh, Bitcoin's way too volatile to be a store of value, right? I think this is a very interesting kind of dichotomy and point here. Well, if you're saying that historically it's been too volatile to be a store of value, then you're making a argument based on what the historical price action has been. Well, historically it's been a great store of value then, because actually the price is, you know, on a long enough time frame kind of done nothing but go up for 12 years. Now maybe there's been sell-offs, but like you look at the Bitcoin price here, it was cents, then it was dollars, then it was tens of dollars, then it was hundreds of dollars. And, you know, maybe it went up and down, but it's basically held value if you just sat back and did nothing, better than anything else in the last 12 years. So if you want to talk about the volatility that way, you got to talk about the store of value that way. And when it comes to the volatility, actually, you know, you can tell by looking at the chart kind of, but mathematically the volatility's gone down as well. Bitcoin is not as volatile as it was, you know, 5 years ago, and even less volatile than 10 years ago.
I mean, people forget it's dropped like 80 or 85%, like 6 times or something. So, which is not, it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, it's definitely wild. And like, and you start, as you get bigger, those 85% drops, if it happens, are much more dramatic and scary. But it does seem to be like the little engine that could. And it just
I actually believe that we're not going to see 85%, at least from 70K, right? Because I mean,
that would be intense.
85% from 70K, I believe, takes it below 10K. That 20K level that I said, right?
Way lower. It'd be like 10K, no?
Yeah, it'd be like 10. So I actually don't think this time we're going to see one of those 80% drops, which, if I'm right, and if that's what happens, then that just shows that the volatility is actually going down as the asset becomes bigger. Which, we see a little bit on the upside too. Because look, like when we went up from 20K, we didn't actually go up to like 200,000 this time. We only went up to 70K, right? So it would make sense also on these sell-offs now that maybe it doesn't go down 85% either, right? I don't know.
Right.
Anyway.
You're dialed in. Before I forget, and because we're so on topic, we're going to cover NFTs. We're going to dive into poker. I know you've been getting deep and playing some PokerGO. You're getting passionate and fired up. I love that. I want to know, what is your price prediction for Bitcoin? I think I've done this for you on Big Free. This is a different podcast, a different series. This is a different day. Rast, what is your today Bitcoin price? Just I know you've thought of. I don't have to think too long. Don't carry the wand to do the calculation. 2023 January 1, Bitcoin, Ethereum. Give me your two prices before we move on, so we lock it in.
January 2023, right?
Yeah,
January end of year. Yeah,
you're popping bottles. You're probably in Brazil, and now what's the price at?
So, my price prediction, and I think this is what I said the last time, is I'm gonna predict that we're still in this range, but we're more towards the top of it. So I'm gonna go with let's say 58,000. So in other words, we've stayed here. We didn't peace out to the upside, but I think it's more likely we're to the top than the bottom. Whatever, basically that's like a year from now, 10 months from now.
58K.
So a 58K.
So reasonable. It just Bitcoin's so flagrantly violent that it's up 17% today. It just seems weird to think it would be like anywhere within, I just feel like,
if you look in a year, even it's been some ups and downs. We've gone from 30 to 60 to 30, but actually we've been between whatever, like 30 and 65 basically for over a year now. So, I mean, my view is that this is a range that's been carved out, and Bitcoin within this range is transferring from people that are selling at this price range to people that are buying. Generally, people that buy in this price range, I'm not saying somebody that buys 30 might not sell some at 60, but like most people buying in the tens of thousands are buying with this idea that I'm talking, that most Bitcoin holders believe that, hey, there's a chance that 5 or 10 years from now or more, whatever, Bitcoin's going to be 500,000 or more a coin because countries are going to buy and this and whatever. So it's like, when you're buying it at 40K, you're not like that excited about 60K. That's not really the idea of Bitcoin, so to me, there's always going to be people that need to sell, whether it's exchanges that have Bitcoin coming in and they need to pay, miners that need to pay, or even like long-term holders that are like living off some of their Bitcoin appreciation. That said, more and more that Bitcoin stays in this range, as long as this idea of adoption continues, the more and more people that are not going to want to sell. I'm not saying they won't for whatever reasons that they might need cash, but they're not going to want to. And then eventually when some adoption shit hits, like the demand will outpace the supply. And that's when you see, okay, peace out, rocket ship time. So my prediction is that we're going to stay in this range until some demand stuff hits the fan. Right. And all of a sudden this influx, like maybe a country's buying, who the fuck knows? Like I said, it's going to be hard to say. This could be a year and a half from now. And then we're going to rocket ship
and what
into the 6 digits.
What about your Ethereum? Give me the Ethereum price too.
Yeah, whatever. Like Ethereum will be probably somewhere in the less than 10% of Bitcoin during this time, because probably not going to be overly bullish. So I don't expect it to go over 0.1. So, if Bitcoin 60K, maybe 4,000, let's say, or something.
Right. Okay. So all right, we got it locked in. We got your predictions locked in. Now tell me about NFTs. So NFTs, obviously, with CryptoPunks or Bored Ape, they're tied sort of the Ethereum price. Ethereum's now gone up as well, like 14%. It's back up to around 3,000. Ethereum, it's gone up. What are your thoughts on NFTs in general? Like, give me sort of, Rast, I know you understand NFTs. The market, it's hard. It's a bit complicated because people just see these new projects, new things. You hear bad news or some good news. It's exciting. What is your overall thesis on NFTs for the future? Because it's sort of been saturated so much in the last year. Where it's the most popular word, I think, in the dictionary or whatever. The most common used word at Thanksgiving, Christmas. People are talking NFTs with their grandparents, with their kids, with everyone. It's just around. So what do you think?
I think NFTs are a really good idea that will have a place going forward. And, you know, obviously there's this idea that within any collection of NFTs, there's a scarce limited supply, but there's kind of an infinite potential for different collections of NFTs, which kind of goes against the idea that there's scarcity. So I think what's going to end up happening is that, you know, people are going to keep making projects because they're useful and people are going to want to make money off of them. And what will end up happening is like some projects will end up being valued for whatever reason, the way they're being used, that people just like them as art because of some historical significance, a blend of all that, maybe some more reasons. And I kind of think like those projects should show some appreciation, as does any, like, say, good art or something that people are like, hey, this is cool. And it like goes up over time. Whereas, you know, some other stuff that people don't really care about because it doesn't catch on, you know, will end up not being worth very much because there's no real demand for it because people don't want it. So, you know, the trick then, if you're looking at it from, listen, if you're entering NFTs from like, hey, I just want to buy a few things that I like. Great. By the way, that's the way art is in a lot of things. Like you buy something, most people buy something to put in their house because they like it. They want to look at it every day. It reminds them of something, you know, they think it's beautiful. Awesome. Yeah. To a certain extent, for the most part, like, oh, NFT as a PFP, as a profile picture. Great. Like you picking something to represent you. You don't necessarily need to make a lot of money off of it. If this is the thing that you use as your profile for the next couple of years, like that could just because you like it, not necessarily because you think you're going to make money investing in it. Right. So, I mean, that's number one as like a use case. Now, obviously, things that people will tend to like and that will end up having value because people keep it. And then that item is more scarce. So that was playing into the other thing, but you don't have to approach it that way. Now, if you want to approach it more from an investing standpoint, then just like anything, you need to try to pick things for any of the reasons I just said, people will value, right? So for example, with CryptoPunks, which is my favorite project, it's like, I think there is like a massive historical significance to it in a way. Like I think the ethos of the project, the way it looks, captures a lot of, especially the early like kind of like punk tech vibe, and the fact that it was really literally one of the first NFT projects, and definitely out of like the original NFT projects, it's by far like the biggest one and the one that like translate the most to like the profile pic, like identity, like virtual identity way. So I think because of that, it's like CryptoPunks just have a really good chance of kind of maintaining this historical significance, making them like a good investment, right? Which is also shown in the fact that it's, you know, basically them and Bored Ape Yacht Club are the two most expensive projects. Now, Bored Ape Yacht Club, being newer, has kind of taken a different approach. Like CryptoPunks have been a lot more kind of, for the most part, hands off. Just they were released, and for a long time they existed, and then you know the market did what they did. The Bored Ape Yacht Club have shown a much more kind of like promotional, you know, advertising, like finding celebrities, like somebody kind of guiding it through, you know, an advertising budget and trying to get it out there and push it on the market approach, which has worked. You could debate, like, is that something that during down times or after that attention goes away, will it sell back off? If there's an NFT bear market, you know, will they crash more? You know, possibly, probably, but in the end, which approach will work better? You know, I don't know.
Is it fair to call buying NFTs like sort of a way of parlay betting in crypto? Is that like, would that be a good analogy or not really? Because you're sort of like, what I mean, one and the other generally, you know, if crypto goes up, CryptoPunks will go up, or in theory. So how do you look at that, and does that make sense if someone were to say that too?
So let me talk to like the average person who's listening to this, who's not like a crypto expert doing it as a full-time job, like a crypto VC investor type person. Here's the thing, you know what the fuck you're buying with an NFT. I'm buying this fucking JPEG. That's it. There's no fucking mystery to it. There's no scam. You know, I'm paying this much for the JPEG. Maybe I can sell the JPEG later for more or not, but this is what I'm getting. And I know that. And there's really no other promise with it, right? So there's nothing. Now, the problem with the rest of crypto to me, And I think like, you know, this is a thing people don't really think about is the rest of all this, especially with 2017 and 18 and all the ICO coins and this coin's going to do this, whatever. Like, hey, we wrote this white paper. Our coin's going to do this in the next 5 to 10 year roadmap. And all of a sudden, you know, okay, problem before crypto with traditional investing, very hard to invest in projects early on, right? They go to like VCs and wherever, and VCs get this access. And if they pick the right projects, they get serious equity early on for providing money. And if the project blows up, they make a shitload and they got in early. In crypto, it's that same kind of idea. But unfortunately, because like everyone has access, now the prices of some of these projects balloon up like insane. So all of a sudden, a coin which does nothing other than trade on an exchange and has a roadmap to like do some shit in the next 10 years is all of a sudden worth like billions of dollars. And you're kind of like, or at least hundreds of millions or something. And it's kind of like, okay, like when in the world does someone with an idea like all of a sudden make like serious money before they implement it? Like that's not what happens in the traditional investing world. So even though this crypto thing with all these other coins is this, okay, it's like open access for everyone, unfortunately, it turns kind of this idea like ass backwards. And now like these projects are worth a bunch of money. Imagine you're one of the programmers and you like founded this coin and you have whatever, like 2% of the supply or 1% of the supply, because that's what you got. Now all of a sudden it's like worth 100 million, and you have like a couple $1 million worth in your coin. For some programmer guy who's probably worth nothing, like, you know, maybe for a lot of people that don't have a lot of incentive to follow up on the 5 to 10 year roadmap, which now involves like a lot of hard work on their end in order to make this project work, you know. Right. And with crypto, you have this thing where, you know, just like with NFTs or anything, it's very easy to compete. The moat isn't very big, right? So like other people can come out and they do, and there's coins which, you know, multiple projects are trying to do the same thing. It's like, so now like, why is one going to succeed over another? And these valuations are super high. And this is another point, like for a lot of crypto projects involving decentralization, it's sort of unclear that the market will prefer decentralization, especially if it costs more money than just a centralized company do the same thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
where are all these people coming from? You know, like there's hundreds of coins, thousands of coins, big projects and stuff. Like, what were these people doing before that come up with these?
And people love playing the crypto casino.
Yeah.
Right. Like everybody has, it's like people play the lottery, and it's kind of like, oh man, I want to turn my $100 into $1 million. What's that, like a 10,000x or whatever the fuck it is?
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? You're not getting a 10,000x in Bitcoin anymore. That ship has sailed. Okay. So like, you know, the problem is that people have these expectations like Bitcoin. The reason why I'm such a big Bitcoin proponent is it's just like has the biggest moat in crypto by a lot to be like this monetary asset that the world uses for just that purpose, not doing some kind of Web3 decentralized thing, just, you know, just this clear monetary purpose. Maybe its only competition kind of is Ethereum a little bit at this point, I would say. But like, so, you know, and it just has a very good chance of, let's say, 10xing in the next 10 years. Let's just say that. Like, by all traditional standards, a 10x in 10 years is like a fucking amazing investment, right? Now, you know, Bitcoin is probably a little bit less likely to do that than, say, like the stock market would be to, like, you buy the S&P and for it to like 2x or 3x maybe in the next 10 years, right? Maybe the stock market's more likely to do that than Bitcoin or not. I don't know, right? But a 10x is a huge return. And so it's kind of like, but people want to play the crypto casino to 10,000x their money by picking some project and hoping that like it blows up. And then not only sometimes these projects blow up and then they hold it hoping that, well, the blow up wasn't just like the kind of the pump and dump and it'll continue on that path. So, you know, to me, that's not really good investing. That's just like straight gambling. Now, maybe there are some people who really are able to research and pick out good projects and make them really good, like high risk investments. But that's not, to me, that's not like 95% of the people investing in crypto. Like they have no fucking idea. They're watching like a YouTube video or a couple of YouTube videos listen to some
They
dude's
should be
opinion.
listening to Coin Rivet, and if they're listening to Coin Rivet, they may got lucky, but they're in. This is a new podcast. Maybe they've heard of Big Three. They're in the mix, and they're getting good info, and they're getting it broken down by Czar Rast. But yeah, it's a wild west out there. There's a lot of misinformation, a lot of rug pulls.
Yeah,
there's great things, great projects, great.
There are. And listen, I'm not trying to say that stuff in crypto won't. I believe there is a big future for crypto in the market to do things. I just think that like when you start to look maybe outside of Bitcoin and possibly Ethereum at this point, or maybe if it's like it's a wild west. And to me, as somebody who isn't an expert in the space, just looking to invest some money and get crypto exposure, you should just be very careful because whatever you see, like people getting paid to shill something or whatever, and it's just like, man, approach this as an investment, not like I'm playing a casino game. That's what I would recommend to most people. And in that return, you should prefer something like Kelly Criterion would say. You should prefer something that, given that these are all high risk, high reward investments, because of the high reward, you should prefer something that has the least amount of risk. Kelly will always tell you that. So
shout out to Phil Locke, man. Kelly Criterion, he's an advocate. He drops that. That's where I heard that for the first time. You should look it up. It's a very interesting principle, concept, and smart man. All right, well, let's just segue a bit because we could get back to crypto. I know you got fired up. We got the we got everything rised up. We're excited. Good day for crypto markets. We're looking at the CryptoPunks, taking a look. Pretty cool. If you guys don't know what those are, here they are. Real quick, last thing I'll say on this is there was a record sale. No, it wasn't. Or was that real, or there's something? Because it's 7.7, and then this one went for 23.7. What is this exactly? What happened there? There
was a real alien sale for 8,000 Ethereum that happened a couple weeks ago now. Yep, that was a real alien sale. So now it's got to be the most expensive single NFT sale, right?
I guess people, right? His thing was but that was like a 500 piece thing, the 63 million. But
I'm not exactly sure. It's definitely
it's expensive.
It's the most expensive out of whatever. Like these NFTs, maybe Beeple had one that's more. I don't know, but this was a real sale. I'm very confident based on people I know and talk to who are deep in the streets that the guy who wanted to buy the alien was shopping around and was making real bids. I've talked to another alien owner who rejected the bid for 8K, and sure enough, it happened to another one. So I'm pretty sure this was real.
Pretty sick. That's real numbers over there, big numbers. So real big numbers. Let's talk about the PGT. We got the PokerGO Tour. We got some events going on. I know you're semi-retired poker player, but you're in there mixing it up. And I noticed you happen to have a nice little result the other day.
I've slowed down. Not semi-retired. If anything, I had slowed down for like a good year plus during COVID, but I've kind of a little bit more playing again in the last months. So, these are my first two tournaments of the year that you're bringing up that I just played. I hadn't played tournaments yet this year. I played 40 or whatever in the last WSOP. I played a few in December at Bellagio. This year it's been pretty slow. I don't know. Yeah.
Look at your boy. Look at our guy, Cary Katz. I mean, just finds himself winning. He's heads up. I mean, he's there. He's deep. He's doing it. 41 entrants. I mean, this is like his.
We chopped.
Okay.
So what happened is this. Cary looks over and is like, hey, it's 1 a.m. We're going to play the next day. Asked me if I want to chop. I loaded up Hendon Mob and saw that here Cary Katz was like sandwiched in between Chidwick and Kuhn. Or maybe actually he might have just passed Kuhn with this cash in this tournament. But
all-time money.
I was just kind of like, okay, Cary, man, sure. I'm way down. Like I'm like 20th now. So, he's just the up and coming young crusher, Cary Katz. So yeah, bro, let's chop it up and come back tomorrow.
Let's take a look at where the Cary sandwich is. He's got the Kuhn Chidwick sandwich.
Chidwick sandwich. That's pretty strong.
He's just past Kuhn actually. And where are you, brother? Where is King? 26.
Once there was a time when I was in the top 10, but where am I now? I'm 26.
Still, it's you're in there. You're in some good company, Mr. Trickett. You're right ahead of. He's kind of slowed down too, so you're safe. Rainer Kempy's always lurking. Paul Flaw. I mean, these are some big names, but yeah, you got
to look though. See, the thing is, I'm not playing that much. So it's these two guys ahead of me. Sam Greenwood and Nick Petrangelo. I mean, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure they're probably putting in a lot more volume than me nowadays, so they're going to be on their way up. I guess the next guy above me, who maybe I got a chance, is like Scott Seaver, but he's almost 2 million ahead of me, so that's a bit of a gap considering.
Leave it to Seaver. Isn't that who you took it? You took him heads up in the 500K, right, for 7.5 milli. That was a nice score.
Yeah, we played heads up on that
for
one.
a big one. But great shout out to Mr. Seaver. All right, so we're checking in poker. So poker's going well. When you do dive in, you still get it done. You still can get it dwe got your Twitter. We were showing the Hendon Mob. We got your website. What's going on with this website? This is pretty snazzy. There's even some music, which
that music was like the music I put on when it was done. The website's like, I don't know, 6, 7 years old at this point, I would say. Haven't been updating it too much. The only thing I do, which I haven't even been writing many articles in the last year plus, is blog on it. It's where I kind of keep my blog.
Okay.
So the blog is really the thing at this point on the website, which I would say is the most kind of up-to-date thing I've been doing over the time. There's a collection of my writings over the years, a very wide range of stuff. My take on like random kind of poker related issues. You can see one of the coolest articles, I guess. I wrote these dual articles about my experience with bike bets, which Jeff, you know all about that. But there was a triple O of bike bets where, each one I won like more money, and there were big sums, and it's actually like quite an interesting gambling story. It started with Dan Bilzerian's bike bet, went to another bike bet that somebody bought out of, and then it went to Dan Bilzerian betting me on doing his thing like the next day, but like kind of much harder than what he had to do, and no training. And I shipped it. And so it's about how basically I was like a biking professional. But
you made your salary, your biking earnings. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. The stories you've talked about, you've written articles. We could spend a lot of time on it. It's pretty incredible going from Vegas to LA, some other stuff in there, but it got kicked up. You won some people some money. People were betting against you. They thought you had no chance. It's pretty legendary. And hopefully when you write a book one day, that will be, I'm sure, take up a chapter about it. Have you thought about writing a book? I mean, you do the blogs, you got some great stories. You've been in gambling. You've been in some cool spots. Like, would you like to write a book one day?
It's like one of those things that I kind of like when somebody just asked me this within the last week as well. My first initial reaction is like, who the fuck's going to want to read my book? But then when I'm like, you talk about it, hey, I got these cool bike bet stories. I have some other just randomly cool gambling stories that, maybe for people that are interested in gambling and poker would enjoy. I can mostly do ones I've done, but maybe even start talking about, ones by people that are close to me and or that I was involved in their bet on, like Antonio boxing Kevin Hart, just like fun stuff. Like I did bet on it and I got 17-1 or something for like 3,000. So really I did win like 50K, but I got an offer. I get an offer from Antonio like a couple months before the fight. He's in like a poker game, and somebody who I'm like, okay, I would definitely trust this guy. I have to bet 100,000 to win 2 million. So I'm getting 20-1, but I couldn't get, obviously I took the bet at 17-1, but I'm like, I didn't really want to bet 100K.
This is one where the group still doesn't forgive you. You could have slipped out in the group chat.
So
yeah,
I'm actually in Bobby's room. And I'm asking people, hey, like anybody interested in taking this as I'm racking up one day, and literally it was like crickets. So I'm like, fuck it. And then I just didn't send it to anyone else. And I kind of forgot about it. And then, obviously Antonio ends up winning this bet. And it's like from multiple levels, I kind of like fucked this up. Like could have said something to more people. The other thing I could have just done was like, dude, I mean, this was like, I should have just took the bet and then just worried over the next months about like selling some to people. I'm sure I could have like offloaded some of the action. That was like super fish by me. First, I should have taken the bet in and of itself. Like I could afford 100K loss, and I'm sure it was Kelly appropriate to take it.
Well, you also know Antonio, like he's serious. He was training some, he was serious.
I knew, obviously I talked to Antonio. I mean, one of the things that I would have taken the bet for sure is I'm like, hey, Antonio, you want to chop it? Right? Like, I'll take half, you take half. Obviously, okay, now if like he's taking more action, like I'm happy. And he was like, nah, like, I'm good. I have enough on it. So I was kind of like, like,
Yeah.
okay, well, now to me, I'm like, I'm okay. I'm not like that excited to get it now. Like the guy who does the bet, who, you know, doesn't want to risk another 50 ball on it to win a mill. So that by the way, that was another reason why I didn't do it.
That's it. That was stupid by him too, man. Because if you really think about boxing odds and like he's training to get to reach, it's like, what is he should have known that he was like doing
with that much time to train, and he's like bigger.
Yeah.
Bigger.
Yeah. Kevin is a great guy. He's not a tall guy. He's a great guy. He's you know, like there's real reach there, and that matters. But anyway, all right. So but if
anyway, whatever.
Look
bunch of random gambling stories.
Look at Bill Perkins, just wrote Die with Zero, just got in the UNC Chapel curriculum listed, right? Like he's also old, at least 53, I think, going on. I just turned 54 actually. You're what, 39, 8, 40?
40.
Freshly 40.
You were there, bro. You were at my
fucking birthday. All right, fair enough. Fair enough. I was just there. That's true. I knew you had, I did know that. I knew you were right around there. I get you and All-American Dave confused all the time because I always think Dave's like 35, but
Dave's older than me.
I know.
He's like 43 or something.
It's exactly. So the time does get going. The point is you got time, right? And imagine you in like 15 years or 12 years or something. Like there's a lot more stories, a lot more to be written. So and I think it doesn't matter, right? If you write a book, it's similar to making a YouTube vlog or streaming on Twitch or doing a podcast. Like at the end of the day, part of it is because you want to do it, you like it, you enjoy it. And there are people, it doesn't have to be the bestseller, right? You do it because you want to do it for your own thing, and then if it sells some copies, cool.
I got my Bitcoin bet, which basically the exact details I will not reveal at this time. I will save it for the future book, but basically bet back in Q1 2019 when Bitcoin was in the 3Ks on it hitting 50 with a couple people. So
that's one of the better ones. It's one of the better stories.
That's a good one.
But was it by the end of 2023 or end of 2024? Do you remember?
I believe.
I think it was the end of 23.
2/3 of the bets were by the end of 2022, and like one was by the end of 2023. Because there were like 3 bets that were kind of all for the same amount. Like I was risking the same amount on each one, and it was like slightly different, you know, how amount I would win on each one, or like, and one of them had like different rules or whatever. But yeah, I mean, essentially on a hit of 50, I think it was 2 were by the end of this year, and 1 was by the end of 2023, I believe, as opposed to 23-24. But it was one of those 2.
It's a crazy one. All right, let's go over here to Twitter. What's going on with this? This is, you got this on your banner on Twitter. What does this mean to you?
Yeah, you're talking about I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's a pretty dope passage. It's from a book. So I want to say I've had this as my banner on Twitter for, years at this point. It's the litany against fear from the series Dune. Right. So I think this is like cool idea about like how a person experiences and overcomes fear. And, face my fear, permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. Fuck, that's like this awesome idea of passing through fear and just like being there. So, it's actually this quote, they used the exact quote in the recent Dune movies, the Dune movie, which came out, which, is based off of this book. So, I mean, this is like a super epic sci-fi book. It's one of the favorite. Actually, there were 6 books written by this ecologist in like the 70s or whatever. And it's that quote is from those books. And I'm a big fan of the series. I really enjoyed the movie that came out, last year. And yeah.
Very nice. That's good. It's it feels powerful. The quote, I get it. It makes sense. Fear is a real thing. People, I think, have a lot of blocks of fear, different types of fear, different levels of fear, different reasons why they don't, go for something. So I think that's it's very, very powerful, very cool. Tell me about Brazil, man. Tell me about what's going on in Brazil. How do you plan to spend more time there? What's sort of your allocation of time for Brazil and traveling that you would like to do, assuming the world's back to normal and COVID and war and all this stuff, crazy stuff.
I mean, I first went to Brazil 12 years ago. It was 12 years ago in January. So 12 years in a month. That's when I met Juliana. you know, that first year and a half, I actually went to Brazil a number of times because she couldn't come here. You know, since then, I've kind of been on a once or maybe twice a year, but usually once schedule of probably spending, let's say on average, like 3 to 4 weeks. That is very likely about to change because I just bought a place last year for, you know, for our family, and what I'd like to do is because what I had been doing recently is we'd rent like a nice big house, you know, at least 5 bedrooms, and when I'm there, different people in our family or friends come and stay with us. But you know, I mean, it's a luxury spot and it's expensive, and I'm just like, one of the day, nice to be on the other end of this. Like, why don't I own this like luxury rental place, and when I'm there, it's mine, and when we're gone, we can rent it out, you know, to at the very least, like, you know, make money, you know, break even, if not make money. And so, you know, finally got around to that last year, thanks to, you know, grateful things happen the way they have with my life. And yeah, so my plan going forward is to spend more time in Brazil because I like it there. It's a wonderful country. You know, I speak Portuguese, which makes it easier, but like, I really like Brazilian people, like my family there. I love the food. The weather in Rio de Janeiro is awesome. City's beautiful, amazing beaches. Like you know, I'm a bit more relaxed when I'm there. Kind of view, like, I like this idea of going back and forth where when I'm in Brazil, let's say I go to Brazil for 3 weeks. Not that I don't do anything, but my like focus is a bit more be with family, relax, exercise. Like the place that I got is in Jardim Botânico, and actually, so in Jardim Botânico next to it is actually like the biggest natural preserve within a metropolitan area, like arguably in the world. I think it's it or like one other place. So my house is actually kind of right up back against that. So I can walk right down the street and enter into some trails, like go hiking. There's like waterfalls back there and basically in the jungle. You know, it's got a beautiful view. I can see the Jesus statue. I can see out to the beach, like from it. And, you know, I'm going to relax, like make sure my health is good and stuff. And then, yeah, like, and then come back when I'm in America. Okay. It's like, I got my stuff I'm going to do. I'm going to play some more poker. I'm going to whatever, like try to like, you know, take stuff off and be more productive and kind of have that kind of dichotomy, but where I'm not getting, sometimes I feel like when I'm in one place for too long, right, I get a little like stuck, but this idea of like going back and forth will kind of keep it fresh and keep me more productive and happier. So my plan going forward is that. And Brazil, you know, if anybody's thinking about going to Brazil, like, tell you, beautiful country. If you're a guy or a girl, really, a lot of beautiful people. I mean, people are like cool. I think Brazilian people are, you know, listen, every culture, people are a little different. I'm not trying to say anything, but to me, it's like very kind of genuine, heart on the sleeve, like very friendly.
Yeah. Yeah, we're both married to Brazil.
Yeah, you feel the same way, I'm sure, right?
We're biased. I agree. I
Food
definitely.
is great. Weather's great. Like, go, you know, right now is actually kind of a good time economically speaking, because like when I first went to Brazil, right, the real was under 2 to 1. So my experience, like that first time in Rio de Janeiro, is like Rio was not cheap. You know, it was like going to a European city or something. It was like pretty expensive. The real is like over 5 to 1 today. It's like 3x cheaper. And, you know, so it's actually like very stuff in Brazil is like super reasonable right now. Like compared to America, like when you go to restaurants.
Isn't that kind of crazy to think about? Because like, you know, my wife, who, you know, we've been married for several, I mean, I met her in 2014. So whatever, like, let's just say exactly like you're talking about back then. I mean, that is an example of an economy where it's really shifted, because it was dollar for dollar back then, like not much before. So Matt, I mean, that's a pretty significant swing for a country if you think about it, to like go from where you're just like, you were living, if you're Brazilian and now you're whatever day to day versus the US, or you're back and forth, it's significant. I mean, that's do you have a prediction on the Brazilian economy in the next coming up? I mean, it's kind of hard again to predict, but what do you think?
You know,
I'm there.
My understanding kind of is like Brazil has a lot of various like natural resources of different kinds. So it's a large country. pretty healthy, no population size. So it kind of feels like there's a bottom on the tail off. Cause like at one point, I believe Brazil was like the 6th largest economy in the world, I want to say. And now it's more like the 10th. So it's slipped a bit. I'll just tell you, just with my own real estate experience, based on like coming in there and buying a place in Rio, given what the real's at and like what I was looking at getting, it was just hard for me to imagine it getting like too much worse. You never know, right? I mean, obviously it happens with countries and their currencies, but I'm just like looking at what I'm going to be able to buy. And I'm just like, can I imagine this being like say 50% the price? I'm like, that'd be like pretty hard to get it like 50% cheaper than this. So if so just like using that kind of way of looking at, okay, what I'm getting for this, I said, okay, it's like, this has to be a pretty good time to buy. So, I don't know. I'm not an expert on that, but it does feel like maybe if there's more down with the Brazilian economy, it's not, as much as it's gone down in the last like 10 years or whatever,
Right.
And there's got to be a lot of upside there. Like they have a lot of like, my understanding, they have, there's like oil off the coast. They've got, they've got like one of the biggest natural rainforests in the world with the Amazon. They've got like a lot of like gems and minerals in the country, a lot of like natural water, I believe, as well. Just there's like a lot of, resources the country has that, you would think at some point kind of become a bit of a base, like, how low can it go? But, who knows? What do you think both about, being in Brazil? Cause you also have a lot of experience there, but also the economy.
Yeah. I mean, I know the government and it's kind of had some real corruption issues and presidential changes, and people seem a bit upset in general. But I will say, like, exactly from the upside, it's kind of hard to imagine a decade ago or so, people are flying over and coming 1-to-1, right? Like, I do believe there is upside. Like, I think the country has a lot of great things to offer. I do think that, I don't see it going down, right? I feel like it's hard to really go down a lot from here. I think that it's much more likely that it gets stronger compared to the dollar. And so I believe there's upside, and I do think that Brazil has a lot to offer, and it's a cool place. And also there's a lot of, like, Brazil doesn't have really natural disasters for the most part, like big ones. It's like neutrally friendly. They don't have like war, right? They're not like rough fight. Like there's a lot, like it's like a pretty overall, I would say, safe place from a lot of standpoints in the world of chaos. So I think there's listen,
I've thought about this, what you're just talking about a little bit, like, hey, if the,
stuff
shit hits the
crazy.
fan. I mean, the U.S. being, like former only superpower, now like maybe bilateral, still probably ahead of China, at least in terms of military, if not an economy anymore. But it's like very likely that, especially if the U.S. transitions to being the second most powerful in the world, like throughout history, this hasn't always come with war, but there's like it's been like a favorite to come with war. And, U.S. going to war with China at some point in like 10 years, like, yeah, it'd be nice to be able to be in Brazil.
I don't even want to bring this up. It actually is an article that I was, I don't even want to say it because it's dark, right? But it's an interestingly scary topic about nuclear war, because I was getting some stats and how many nuclear wars heads there are and all these different things and how long it would take for a missile to get from Russia to US. It's like 30 minutes, like kind of crazy, scary shit, right? From different parts of the world. But this article was from Stanford, and the basically was saying that the scenario that there's nuclear war, and I would have to look at the date of the article. It was in the last 5 years or so. Like they basically said within a decade was like highly likely. And then they said nuclear war within a century was basically inevitable. I mean, that's pretty shocking, right? I mean, that's pretty scary. I mean, that's your school. I got your shot to Stanford. I'm just saying, like, that's like, if you start thinking about it, it's a deterrent, right? It's a deterrent for nuclear war. But when everyone's got stuff everywhere at all times, like, it starts getting a little bit overwhelming. I don't know how much you've given to that. And, it's pretty
inevitable to me seems too pessimistic.
I agree.
I mean, and also it depends on exactly what you're counting as nuclear war. I mean, I would say this. We've had nuclear weapons now for since the 50s or 40s, right? Because it was really used at the end of World War II. So, I mean, for a while it was just like us and then Russia, and you know, it wasn't that many states. But I mean, really, we've had nuclear weapons for like, I guess it's pushing 80 years they've existed, and we really haven't had anything that would qualify as a nuclear war, in my opinion.
The Cuban Missile Crisis was apparently pretty close.
Yeah, no, I mean, there was a moment during the Cold War where apparently Russia almost fucking fired, and some guy in Russia, just like an officer, decided to not fucking fire, and he was right that these blips on the radar were apparently like some kind of, they weren't nuclear weapons that the U.S. had fired.
Yeah,
if that guy had fired, it would have been it.
Technology, right? There was like
it's
radar.
Crazy. Yeah. That said, we did go 75 years at this point without doing it. And to me, I mean, if you look from the perspective of the big nations like China, the US, Russia, there's not a lot of incentive to use nuclear weapons, because that's like what? It's just going to all be over? Like, to me, it's a lot more likely like, oh, hey, if it's inevitable, it would be, oh, hey, because like some crazy, like small rogue, or like, you know, at some point, if the technology proliferates enough, just like terrorists,
exactly,
quote unquote, like small groups now like can get their hands on nukes, and instead of them blowing up the World Trade Center or whatever they want to do, they just fucking blow up New York or whatever. Like, I mean,
yeah, it's dark. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. I just like, it's in the world. It's in the world right now. I saw a Stanford article. This is Coin Rivet. This is exciting, fun crypto, positive energy. But we'll just take a little detour. On that note, I know we get winding down here. I want to ask you about the podcast which we've started called Big Free. What are your thoughts so far? Are you enjoying doing podcasting? I've done 170 episodes, and now I've started this Coin Rivet series. I love it. I think it's fun. What are your thoughts as a podcast host? You could call yourself now.
Man, so I like doing podcasts. I mean, I'm basically doing that just because I like doing it. I have no expectation really of making like any money off of it.
Right.
I mean, I view it like this. I mean, you know, we're doing this today. I've been on your podcast twice. Now we've done a couple episodes of ours. I did one with Jungle today where I stayed on there. I would have kept going, but my contractor came over and I had to cut it at 2 hours. You know,
oh wow, it's a long one. 2 hours.
Yeah, it's long. I really enjoyed that podcast, but Jungle's fun. But like to me, it's whatever. It's like I'm having a conversation with you. We're talking about stuff, you know. And this one, it's more like you're asking me questions. And I'm talking, but you know. With Jungle, same thing. When you and I do our thing, okay, like I don't really talk with Phil Hellmuth. And if I ever do talk with him, it's, you know, I'll be at the poker table or something. It's not like, hey, I talked to him for like an hour or hour and a half like we did about like whatever, and I get to ask him questions. And so I view it as this kind of cool way to just talk with people that, oh, hey, I want to talk with this person anyway. And so it's fun.
I would go a step further and just to add on, in my experience, like it's similar to Twitch or doing a YouTube vlog. Like I find, and I think the reason I'm asking too is for anyone out there that's maybe considering that is into crypto or into NFTs or something kind of new that they're passionate about, to look at ways, if again, it's not for everyone, but it's something more of like a journal, right? It's interesting. Like you can talk or have friends or learn something and kind of go about your sort of progression and document it. Because like when I look back and I'm like, man, like, you know, even like what you made, this vlog series, right? It's like, you have that forever. Like that is now a vivid, there's a trail, there's a history, there's a thing you could revisit. You can look at the picture, you can read a blurb, you can watch a little video, and it's a memory dividend. So, you know, I think that's like something interesting. If you're worried about starting or doing something, it doesn't take much. Get a camera, get a mic, mess around, shoot some ideas, talk with some friends. And if it's something that you're interested in, it's really just something you got to dive in. And like you said, you don't need to expect something out of it. Don't quit your day job, but have something that you know, you could kind of do on the side, and it can be fun. And then you have it. So yeah, it's good to hear that you're enjoying it, because I knew we've already had a couple hiccups. We recorded an episode where we didn't have the volume correct, right? Which was an absolute tilt job. This was like 11 p.m. in Vegas. I think the first ever episode we had to reshoot.
At JG's apartment. Yeah. And we just like did it again. But it worked out. So kind of crazy. There was a hiccup the other day. I'll admit to it. I got the days mixed up in my head, and for whatever, like we were supposed to shoot one with Perkins, Bill Perkins on Saturday.
Yeah.
And I JG actually like put all this together, you know, not that it was like too hard, but I left him some message like the day before talking about doing it on Monday. And he actually sent a message, hey, no, it's Saturday. But like, I didn't like, whatever. I didn't like comprehend, like he's saying it's Saturday because in my message, I said Monday. Right. Like, so I don't have the right day in my head.
I would just say that logistically speaking, it is, of course, there is logistics that go, especially when you're like multi people trying to plan schedules and times and stuff, but whatever, it's fun. It's great. Glad you're enjoying it. And I always have a good time. That's the thing, man. We talk all the time. So it's like, why not, you know, same if you play online poker and you like content, you like people, it's like, why not stream, right? You can do something you're already doing or you enjoy, and then sort of, you know, multi purpose, get value out of it. So again, you know, Brian, this has been fun. We have luckily.
I want a question for you before you move on about this. So, you know, obviously I'm just like dipping my toes in. I've done a few podcasts. I'm like, okay, like just want to have fun. You've done 100 odd, whatever.
Almost 200 now.
Almost 200. So what are dual part question. First, what is it that you enjoy the most about it, like at this point? And the second part is, you know, what is it that like you want to get out of it, or that you're, you know, not only like, what do you enjoy about it? And, you know, how do you feel about it, like going forward as a part of your life? Cause you do it even more than me. You have like our podcast, your own podcast, maybe even a third podcast. So
yeah, I mean, it's I could get real, go on a long-winded thing. I'll say in summary, the brief thing that I love the most is that I love people, and I really do get to meet some new interesting people that I probably wouldn't have gotten connected with in the first place. So, you know, whether it's from a business investment or a mutual contact or someone that I just wouldn't, you know, whether it's from you or someone at Rivet or from my podcast, someone will reach out, and I've gotten to talk to some really, really interesting people that I probably would never have gotten in touch with, you know, whatever. I could name a dozen or 100 actually different people that are just interesting. Some are my friends already, but I think that that's the coolest part is I get to learn, talk to someone who's an expert in their field, whether it's some sporting thing or business or video game, and get to pick chess. I mean, you could just, the list goes on, music, and I get to talk to them, get to understand sort of how they start. And you kind of realize that everyone's not that different, where a lot of these people that are successful, whether it's an athlete or a video game streamer or a poker player, whoever, that ultimately they're kind of all the same, right? Like people started, they had to put that first step forward. And of course, there's some people that are talented, gifted, have attributes that make them successful. But really, I think a lot of people have the same sort of determination and motivation to be the best or one of the best in their craft. So to me, it's a treat. It's actually like, I love just doing it. I love talking to people and I learn a lot. So that is the driving motivation. Sure, if there's some benefit and auxiliary stuff that comes, you know, I think that's like you see like a Joe Rogan or some successful streamers and stuff, like they ultimately just did it, dove in, they put the work in, and then the other stuff kind of comes, right? If it's meant to be and you love it and other people are enjoying it, a lot of good stuff can come from it. But ultimately, I think that's the most beneficial thing is you really get to connect with people. And as you said, even people that you might know, you know, people get busy. Like you're busy, I'm busy, but people are busy. Like it's just one of those things. You don't really get to sit and talk to someone for an hour and just shoot the shit and talk and learn. And they ask questions, you ask questions, and you kind of get to really know and get a better feel. Because a lot of interviews too on Poker News or other places, you see a guy for 2 minutes, you know, one of your favorite poker players for 3 minutes talking to Poker News about a hand or what they're up to. It's like, you know, you don't really get to know someone. Or you watch an athlete on ESPN give after the game, right? They give a 30-second, a 1 minute. LeBron James tells you like, oh, you know, this and that, and gives a joke, and it's like, that's it. So I think in a podcast, if you really sit there and watch, you get a really good feel for a person, for their energy, for what they're like, what their interests are, what they're passionate about. And I think that is interesting. I think that's also one of the reasons you see so many podcasts kind of growing and popping up everywhere. Yeah. It is sort of exciting content. But again, Rast, thank you. If you guys want to see more of us, again, big free shout out to that. Check that podcast out. Brand new series we started. We've got a few episodes on our belt, many more to come. Rivet, this is number 3, I believe, in the book. We've got Rob Young, we've got Yo Viral, Brian Rast, we've got some other big names in poker and crypto and others coming up. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, appreciate you guys tuning in. And thank you, Mr. Rast. And I'll see you very soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you, JG, for having me on, man. Pleasure as always.
Cheers. Crushed it. All right. We heard Rast Bitcoin price prediction. I think it was 58K, if I'm not mistaken, end of 2022 on January 1. And Ethereum, he was a little less concise, but it was less than 10% at, I think he said around 4,000 to be exact. So you guys can lock that in. We'll see you on the next episode. Enjoy your time. Enjoy your podcast. Enjoy your day. We'll see you very soon. Thanks to Rast.